let's go back to the Cowboys real quick because we both had some choice words about them. Their big addition was they got Brandon Cooks. They got him for nothing. They got him
Yeah.
for a fifth round pick. They also got Stephon Gilmore. Very
Yeah.
nice addition for them. However, they lost Zeke Elliott, the face of the team for the last 8 years. They lost Dalton Schultz, their number one tight end. They lost their guard, Connor McGovern, who was a really nice guard for him. They lost Noah Brown. So some big losses there. They did get Brandon Cooks. They did get Stephon Gilmore. We talked about their projections. You said the over for them, right? Or you said the under? The under?
Under,
So
yeah.
you're not very big on them this year.
I'm not very big. I don't love the Stephon Gilmore addition because, again, it's similar to the Buffalo Bills adding Von Miller last year. It's like there's a reason that the Indianapolis Colts of all teams in the NFL just let Stephon Gilmore walk. So that's your first issue. And then your next issue is you're going up against the Philadelphia Eagles team, which seems like they have the remedy to Micah Parsons. There were some plays that Nick Sirianni was specifically drawing up to mess with Micah Parsons' head, make him think twice. So he had the remedy there. And then this is a very pass rush heavy team that can't stop the run because the Niners are focused on getting to the quarterback, and they really get into situations where they pin their earbacks too often, and then they aren't focused as much as they should be on stopping the run. And then Micah Parsons, as great as he is, you still have some issues in your secondary, and I don't think Stephon Gilmore cures that. And I think you're still going to have plenty of matchup problems where the Eagles, the 49ers are going to be able to pick at either Gilmore or your second best cornerback, and then Trayvon Diggs still gets burned. So I do like, though, you still have Dan Snyder as your defensive head coach. Dan Quinn as your defensive head coach there. And then the offense, I'm not in love with it because not only is Ezekiel Elliott gone, and he made up the majority of your offense last year, even though he was going nowhere slowly, he still had a lot of touches. They're trying to give him the ball. And then Brandon Cooks, it's a good addition, but I don't think it fixes all of your problems. He's going to be a nice fit with Dallas, and I think Dak is going to like throwing him the ball, but you still have him, CD, and then you lost Ezekiel Elliott, so you have to replace him with a running back in the draft, and then your offensive line is falling apart. The offensive line of old with Tony Romo and DeMarco Murray, we've been talking about how good the Dallas Cowboys offensive line has been since Tony Romo. That's how old this offensive line is. So this is the year where we really have to focus in on, like, we just got to stop saying that the Dallas Cowboys offensive line is really good because they drafted a bunch of guys around Tony Romo and DeMarco Murray. And yeah, this offensive line is the same offensive line that got Darren McFadden 1,000-yard rushing season. So it's like, we got to stop talking that their offensive line is great. They still have some work to do next year. And then Tony Pollard's really good, but I feel like he's the best second running back. I'm not saying he's not a good one, but I think he's more in the 15 to 12 range. I don't think he's ever going to be cracking in the top 10 running backs in the league, especially he was the dual threat with Ezekiel Elliott, which takes a lot of pressure off you not to be the bell cow. And then if there's ever a problem with their running game, no one cares what Tony Pollard's doing. They care about what Ezekiel Elliott's doing. And then Mike McCarthy's a problem. I mean, he is arguably tied for the worst coach in the division with Ron Rivera.
Yeah, I would have to agree.
What are your thoughts on the Cowboys?
My thoughts on the Cowboys, I'm torn on the Cowboys because on one end, I really like Brandon Cooks, and I disagree with the Stephon Gilmore signing. They gave up a sixth-round pick for him, so it's like they didn't really give up much for him. So in those additions, the trades that they made, the additions they made, they didn't give up anything for it. It's like low risk, super high reward for them.
Right.
However, I think when you lose a player like Zeke, you lose a player like Dalton Schultz. Dalton Schultz, by the way, is a top 6 or 7 tight end in the NFL. And it's not one of those guys you can just go out and draft. I mean, the tight end position to draft, it's
hard.
very, very hard. I mean, you have Kelsey, Kittle, Waller, Dalton Schultz,
Hawkinson,
Goddard. And then after that, there's a massive drop-off.
Yeah. Like David Njoku's nice with it.
Nice.
Mike Gesicki and like Hunter Henry, they're nice with it. Mark Andrews.
I forgot to mention I knew I was forgetting Mark Andrews there. So there's like 8 really great tight ends, but every year we draft 10 to 12.
Yeah. Well, like to that point, even Kyle Pitts, like everyone's like, oh, this guy's going to be the next freak. It's like,
has he been? Not really.
Yeah.
I mean, he's good. He's talented, but.
And he was a lock.
He was a lock. He was drafted over Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
So drafting, everyone's like, oh, we'll draft a replacement. We'll draft a replacement for Zeke. And I do think the Cowboys, I trust them with running backs. But when you lose a player who's been a part of a team for a decade, there's a part of the locker room that's missing. And I know that Zeke, a lot of people had issue with him. Everyone knew he was kind of regressing. But when you lose a player like that, it's not someone that you can just immediately replace. Even if they got a Bijan Robinson, who's definitely has a lot, obviously has more in the tank, but probably has more skill at this point than him. It's like there's also that locker room element. You lose a part of your locker room when you lose Zeke. And there's other players that they lost as well. He's not the only one. So it's like there's a key part they lost. Plus, I think losing Kellen Moore is also a big addition because he was a pretty good offensive coordinator for you. He had his issues, like most offensive coordinators. And I think you replacing him with the Seahawks offensive coordinator makes me really worried. I think Dak Prescott will have less turnovers with Brian Schottenheimer, but it's also, I mean, he's going to be throwing a lot of screens. I mean, you're talking about letting Russ cook. You're going to let Dak simmer with this.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. So with the defense will be really solid. I think we'll still be really good.
Yeah.
But I think you make a good point about the offensive line. It's been, I mean, Zach Martin is 35.
Yeah. Tyron Smith.
35.
Yeah.
They're in their late 30s now. And we all know the NFL is unforgiving.
No.
So I kind of like your take. I still think the Cowboys are going to be competitive because I have no faith in the Giants and I have no faith in the Commanders.